7:36. Eric, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. You're the first item on the agenda.
Okay. I work for Sunrun Solar. Basically explaining the job on behalf of Aaron Leonard for 17 Parsonage Street.
Great. Are you able to share the application materials on your screen?
I do not have a copy of the application.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we have a printout copy.
Okay.
So we can just work our way.
The photos, I don't know what.
Yeah, sure, we can.
Or do you want?
Why don't you just open up the application itself? But I don't know if Eric is going to be able to see.
Let me see if I can find it.
I'm going to share.
I have the plans and stuff in front of me, so
Is it online, Sean?
We can just kind of
Is it-
look through.
Is it in the folder, Sean?
It's on the Google Drive and it's also on just the village website. But I think the important pieces are the site plan and the roof plans. All the rest of it is the kind of information about the units.
I mean, we're not gonna see if the one line diagram is historically appropriate.
It's confusing.
So
Okay. So I guess the question is that we have three arrays, let's see which doesn't have, oh, north arrow is that way.
Not on the front of the house.
So yeah, so this is Parsonage here. This is we know, of course, this house from our discussion. Intimately. But oh my gosh.
It's back.
So it's this,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be
The
on
rear
these,
roof
so it's
lines.
not gonna
Not
be
very
here,
visible.
it's gonna be on this elevation
Yeah.
and maybe back on the left side of this garage.
Hardly can see it.
So I guess the only question that we would have is where is where's the meter that it's gonna run to, or will that all be indoors?
the meter, if you look at the top left of that picture of the plan set you're looking at right now, it's pointing at, if you were facing the house, the right side of the house,
Oh, okay, great. And that's where everything already is?
that's where their meter is, and that's where the inverter will be as well.
You know, does that include okay, I see the conduit run is, and when you say entrenched, that means it's gonna be in a trench?
Right, because they have that detached garage in the back that's also getting
Yeah.
panels on it.
Yeah.
So the Delta, the thing that we have the spec sheet for, the Delta storage.
Yep, that's the inverter,
That's gonna be mounted on the exterior of the house?
correct.
Okay. Alongside the other meter and sort of on the, pretty close to the lot line with the house next door.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate our lot lines are as to like maybe like like the county page, but I'm sure it's a little bit more extended than that.
Okay, so, I forget, is it an inverter or a storage?
It's an inverter.
Right, so this is not,
Yeah, it's not a battery backup.
all storage. Okay.
But this is the. This is also the inverter. Smart inverter.
I'm sorry?
Can you open this image? We just want to confirm, Eric, that we're looking at the correct thing. It's this. Yeah, so is this the device that'll be on the side of the house?
Correct.
Right, that's what I thought.
Okay.
So I guess my other question then is so because the panels are sort of on this rear volume, how is all the wiring and everything gonna run? Is it gonna run internally and then up to that inverter, or is it gonna be on the exterior of the building?
So this, I believe this particular project, the conduit will go, run down the side to the inverter. There won't be any wiring visible on the roof, if that's what you're asking.
I'm asking more about the walls.
Yeah,
you're
there'll be a piece of conduit coming down to the inverter.
There'll be conduit on the exterior.
Just one, you know,
Well, I guess the question is that you've got an array on the east side, you've got an array on the west side. All of that conduit's gonna be outside,
right.
right? You can't run any of it inside?
I could ask the design team, but as far as I know, this one would be on the outside. It's one piece of conduit straight down to the inverter.
Right, I guess,
How are they all connected?
yeah, the question, the question that I have is how is it getting from one volume to the next volume? Because it's the panels are, set further back towards the rear of the property, and those are on a totally separate roof structure. So is it coming? I guess
It would
kind
be
of
coming over the ridge. Is that what you mean? Over the ridge of that back piece of the house. And then straight down to the inverter.
Up over the roof line?
Up over the pitch of the roof.
Right.
and then over the pitch of the cross gable, or well, I guess the main roof,
Yes.
and then down. Okay.
But most likely that, I mean, usually when they do that, the conduit is underneath the panels. So it's not like running right over, the bare roof.
Right, but to get to the inverter, it will have to run over the bare roof based on where the location is.
Yes.
Is it possible that it could run along the eave of the at the top of the wall and make those two right turns and then drop down?
Honestly, I have nothing to do with the design of these projects, so I can't really answer that. I could definitely ask them.
Okay. So ultimately, what we want to do is we want to minimize the, we have great interest in solar power. We have never turned down a solar array, but we do want to make sure that we mitigate the impact of the, the technology and the wiring and all of that. I would say I personally don't have an issue with the location of any of these panels on the garage or on the house. I think it's great that they're able to be useful on the rear roofs. Not everybody is that lucky. But what we really are going to need to know is exactly how the wiring is going to connect to the inverter, because that, that portion of the house is among the most visible and prominent. So
Right.
normally we try to hide it along a corner board or some other sort of architectural detail that sort of helps to mask it. So I guess we would just need to get a little bit more information from your team about how, exactly how the line's going to run and how it's going to get from the back to the front.
A photo of that side of the house would be helpful, maybe even with it just drawn in or something, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have anything of that side.
A lot of the more recent projects that we've had, and I think even some from Sunrun, it's all of the conduit has been, or all of the wiring has been inside the building.
Mhm.
So we haven't had to really talk about kind of where the conduit's running in a little while, but is there a way that you could communicate to your team about how that's going to happen, and we could maybe see a diagram of it or even a marked up elevation?
No, but if we
Yeah,
let-
definitely. So was that something I could like just send out to you guys to take a look at, or?
I'm sorry, one second. So
How about if we lay out how we want it run, and then if they have any problems, they can come back.
well, we could do that, except we don't even have an elevation of that side of the house.
Yeah.
Well, but we can lay out the conduit runs in the plan. I mean, he's already talking about, this is the conduit run in the trench here to here. So basically, it's in a trench here. How would, I guess it has to go up the side of the building, right?
And then through the roof under the.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's coming through a trench from here to here, then can it not come down this corner of
Right.
the building and then go into a trench up to the?
Well,
That's
and
a nice
that may
balance.
be a possibility. I mean, for example, can the conduit run from here, go down to
The rear corner board?
where the trench is,
Yeah.
and that then goes over? And I guess the question is this the property
This
line?
also looks like there's a concrete driveway right on the side where,
Right here,
right there
but could
on
it
the property line.
come
And then come up.
along the foundation
Yeah,
sort of
right.
into the back here?
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be acceptable, right?
I mean, because otherwise, the way it sounds is we're gonna have, even if the conduit goes under the eave, it's gonna come from here around and then here and then up to the peak of the, because think of how that roof is shaped, sorry. It's gonna have to come up to this peak and then it's gonna have to drop down to somewhere along this wall. I mean, I guess it could. If it could go up and follow the eave down and then kind of go along the backside of the gutter and over, that would kind of be the only way to do it all surface mounted,
Yeah, like following the roof line underneath it.
which is probably what's happening here also.
Hmm.
Okay,
Well, are we talking about along the roof edge here down to the inverters? The inverters are on the far side.
yeah,
There's
Right.
quite a big
Because
overhang.
this is the layout. Are we correct in that the layout shown on the drawing is how the inverter and the panel and LC, the PV load center? What are all the conduits gonna run into? The inverter or the load center?
The inverter.
The inverters. So that means that needs to come up to the ridge and then drop straight down.
yeah, but it looks like there's already some conduit there, so I'm wondering if I can actually just see.
Well,
inside this
that's where
house.
the service entrance, so that, that's where the electric service comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the most desirable thing. So is that something that we can reflect on our plans and then they can confirm whether it's possible?
I mean, that's, at least then you can have an approval, and if they
Yeah,
can,
they won't
if they
wait.
can comply, then life goes on.
Okay,
But
Yeah.
now, how about this one, this side over here?
Over the ridge.
that I'm not concerned about because that's gonna be outside of, that's not gonna be visible from the street. So if they're gonna put it over their ridge, then
Or,
to connect from one side to the other or through the attic or,
yeah, I mean, if it goes through the attic, it can connect to the other
Other side.
array on this side. And then basically. Do we try and drop it down to catch this, or just run it along the ridge, along the eave to here? And make the transition here? Somewhere along the line, this guy's gotta come up out of the trench.
exactly, yeah, that's why I'm kind of. Would like to
All
have
just ran
have
back
them
down.
draw it and not us adjust it.
Mm.
Because if the trenched line is gonna be going into the basement. And everything's gonna be inside, then I don't see why the roof line can't just go also drop down into the
Because,
basement.
because this is where the inverters are, so.
No, I realize that, but I'm saying, otherwise, we're gonna have conduit going up the back corner of the house to reach the roof, then along the roof line, then out and in and up. And over and then straight down.
Right. Well, that and also. We don't know if each array has to have its own home run to the inverter.
Right. Or if they can be
Or can,
interconnected.
can they be connected?
Right.
I'm sure I could have the design team just draw up exactly where the conduit's gonna be on this drawing.
Mhm.
Or just have a separate drawing altogether.
Probably helpful to see the side, that
Yeah.
side elevation of the house.
I think that maybe that's what we do, because, we're sitting over here and we're playing in electrical.
Yeah, I totally understand, but I can definitely have them do that for you. It's
Can
not a
they just take some clear photos from the neighbor's driveway? and
Yeah, I
then
think
draw
that's
it
all.
on the image, that seems like, rather than having to draw the elevation of the
Yeah,
house,
right.
that seems like.
All right.
Either way, I just think
Can
that
you
we
come
need to.
back and, what are the 28th? Is that when?
I don't think we have anything scheduled for the 20th.
Once a month now.
We can have some.
It would be on yeah, I mean, you guys could meet whenever you want, but I'm not gonna be away. I'm gonna be away until,
Could we just submit the picture to you guys?
sorry?
Would we be able to just to submit the picture to you and just get an approval that way, or do we have to go through another meeting?
We would have to approve it in a meeting, in a
Okay.
session. Our next scheduled meeting is on April 4th.
Okay,
So that gives you a couple of weeks to kind of look at it again and get it all organized and. Ultimately, like we said, it's, the minimal amount of disruption to the facade is what we're looking for. Again, I don't have a problem with the location of the panels and I don't have a problem with the inverter itself. It's just how much, how is the conduit going to be kind of corresponding to the lines of the building?
understood.
Okay, so we will see you again on, at the April meeting. And if we, for any reason, are going to be meeting before then in quorum, we'll let you know and we could possibly address it sooner.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate your time.
Cool, thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Meeting is on April 4th.
April 4th.
Or,
You were away for that or you're here?
No, I'll be here for that. I'm away the next 2 Tuesdays.
okay. Number 5 Market Street.
Next.
Thanks.
Hi,
Hi. Would you like to join us?
sure. Come on down.
This is the application that was submitted.
That's a good time.
Okay. So you own the Blau House?
Yeah.
You want to put a canopy over the front door?
Yeah.
So. The thing that we were talking about earlier, you look at all of these, is the thing that did kind of stand out to me is the fact that it's an unsupported canopy, which we don't really have much of a precedent for. So I just wanted to talk through what our expectations would be for something like this.
Well, the thing is that how far of a projection do we have? 23.5 inches, so it's like a 2-foot projection.
Right. But there is also a raised stoop in front of the.
Right, I remember that. I mean, I guess the thing that caught my eye on this little montage is that typically most of the porch roofs are shed roofs,
Right.
and this is a peak roof.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the other concern that I had as well. So
But
the two that I observed in the district, just from our photos, I didn't actually start walking around, that were unsupported were both shed roofs and pretty, relatively petite, but not without design. And then all of the other ones that I saw that were, and this is of course excluding just full-on porches, of which of course we have hundreds of.
Yeah.
But, sort of more door protector type canopies, they were all supported on posts and of different styles. So I think we would want to kind of have an idea of how the canopy was going to relate to the stoop in front of it.
The only thing is that this stoop is relatively small, and it has to be small because it actually projects onto the side.
Right.
And so there is an issue as far as how big it can be. And that's why the canopy is only 2 feet.
So is that the same depth as this stoop?
No, it's a bit less.
The canopy is less than the
Yeah.
stoop.
It's really just because the problem was that the gutter overflows when it's a big downpour, and it has a slight bend to the middle, so it basically just pours onto this.
Oh,
the
sure,
doorstep.
yeah.
So I had actually an issue with the doorstep and I had to replace it because it was all rotten. And when I was looking at it, I did actually walk around the village to try and. I thought that having the pitch like that would stop the water coming onto the sidewalk, towards pedestrians.
Right.
And I noted that they had posts, but then if I have posts, I've got to bring those posts down onto his property.
Oh, so your
stoop
stoop is on village property?
Yeah, so I've suggested I should buy that anyway, if I can, because, it simplifies things.
Right.
But then I was worried that having the water come this way, how do you stop it all shooting out onto the sidewalk? If it comes onto my property, and then I deal with that water, it just seemed like a simpler.
Right,
Also,
except the
small.
way that your stoop is designed with your stairs, the water is going to be coming off and hitting anybody walking up these stairs.
Anyways, but that, if I own that, then that's.
Then they're
my
your
problem.
death.
Yeah, rather than passers by. Pass all the time.
Well, I guess independent of you, how does what does the code stipulate about projections over village property? I know that it's this issue with signs, but would we be able to approve this
You could
even as an
approve it.
overhang?
You could have to check the code, but I think as we've done with signs, you could approve it conditionally on the board, then approving that it's placement over the village property.
The trustees or the village?
Trustees,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so that isn't something to prevent us from moving forward. Great.
I think given the small stoop, no post is a better option. for multiple reasons, in addition to the fact that the village owns that property, but, yeah, I mean, I would be inclined to probably do the shed roof route. But your concerns about respectable concerns about dumping the water and snow and ice onto the sidewalk,
Wouldn't there be a gutter there though, if it was a shed roof?
most of these, I mean, most little over.
Oh, but then it's not, there's no posts, so where would the?
Well, because there's
leader
nothing
go?
else there really for it. I mean, it's not like it's gonna
so
then
small.
go onto a surface because it's empty. You know, it just has a drip edge.
Yeah.
Except
Actually, I
didn't
think
have,
that, I actually think that the peaked roof is more typical of the colonial style that the building is than a shed roof would be.
Or that
Um,
image.
I'm fortunate here. I'm sitting in front of a screen and I'm looking at all kinds of colonial examples and just think about it a little. I had to do that to make me think about it a little bit. What I've seen, most of them seem to be peaked, little peaked.
I mean, it looks Federalist style, and if that's the case, then it should have that imitation pediment over it.
That's-
That,
Where I was going next, yeah. Go for
I
it.
think that would be more appropriate for this particular building. The only thing I find inappropriate is, that kind of decorative buttressing element, within the triangle shape. Yeah, I mean,
Well, there's also this example over on Fifth? No, where's this?
that is.
New Street, which is,
I know the building.
yeah.
Oh, the
That's
old one on New Street?
the old house on New Street. Yeah, the brick house.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only, sort of peaked example from these that I pulled. Again, not. This was only an exhaustive inventory of houses we had pictures of, not of the entire district, but. If it were to have a little bit more of that open,
Yeah,
kind of open design as well, with some sort of bracketing on either side, that might be a way of kind of marrying it into it. I think, Lloyd, your point about the sort of style, the style on other colonials is valid. I just don't think that we have any of our colonials have any canopies. That was the other thing I noticed, was I looked
Right.
through and
Yeah,
it's also, this is a style of house that we don't really have very many of in the village at all. Probably because none of our lots are wide enough to accommodate it.
It wasn't
Well-
part of that Victorian building boom, so.
yeah, I mean, this is, the river side of the tracks is the oldest part of the village, and so that's where this is. I know that some of the people across the street have a colonial that's like that also.
Yeah, the one that's on the corner. I know the one you're talking about. It looks very similar to this.
I guess my question would be, I see how you've drawn it in, but you've got two light fixtures there.
Yes, that probably needs to be repositioned,
Okay.
but there's actually a third light
Above, yeah,
above, which I blocked off because it's just got water in it.
right.
With this problem, that would fit inside the top, so I could just have a light inside
Okay.
of some kind that would be.
Right, which actually I think is probably also what they've done. If you look at the brick building that's inverted, that one, yeah, it looks like they also, I can't tell if the fixture is mounted on the wall or coming off of if it's a hanging fixture or a wall fixture, but that's also how they've kind of dealt with it.
Yeah.
What were the what were the materials that you were proposing for this?
So it's basically wood, which I paint white and the other. And then just shingles on the roof.
Just like a asphalt
Yeah.
architectural shingle? Okay. Well, we like wood. But wood is good.
For something this small, I think, a posted canopy probably makes more sense, was it? You know, it's only 2 feet wide.
Yeah. That's good. I mean,
It doesn't make sense to have. a
less
post.
of a visual
Yeah,
impact.
No, it's
Right,
you require a little more framework here for the supports without the
Mhm.
post, so that's.
yeah. And I guess the other question is just the ornamentation or lack of ornamentation of the brackets themselves. Would we want something that's as simple as this, or something that's a little bit more decorative?
Well,
We could look to 24 Main, the blue house at the corner for, they have post, but they have sort of ornamented brackets.
Yeah, quite a nice round design or some kind of, this one.
124 Main. Oh, yeah, the one on the corner of Fish.
Yeah.
Fish and Main. With the red door across from the Argentine place.
Right.
Um. So what's the sheathing material gonna be?
The sheathing,
Yeah, in other words, this is the frame, obviously you're gonna have shingles on top. You've got to put something which sort of ties all the framing together.
so I guess it's some sort of plywood undercover with.
Yeah, well, I guess the only thing about plywood is that, and am I correct, it's gonna be painted?
Yes.
Hey Jeff, could I share screen?
Yep, I'll make you, oh,
I guess
You're
my
talking.
concern is that it's such a small little element that, you know.
okay, you should be able to now.
Thanks.
Sorry, you're saying that on the top, or you're saying on the
The sheathing,
inside?
I
The
mean,
sheeting under the shingles, it's.
yeah, I mean, you gotta, I mean,
it's
you've
gonna
got this
need to be-
framing.
It's
but-
gonna need to be trimmed out in some way, or you're gonna have raw plywood edge exposed, which is gonna
Right,
not hold up well, right?
okay,
Yeah, and there are a lot of little fussy details that really need to be worked out. You know, are we gonna go with this sort of bracketed front, or is it going to be solid? And, you know, some sort of siding there. Does it project out beyond and, you know, set back?
right.
This is the framing,
Right, but not the detailing.
but it's not the finish.
Right, okay,
I mean, maybe the front of it is just something similar to the siding on the of the house.
Well, the siding of the house is that transite.
right.
Okay, so that might be
And also, I think the module of it is just too
too small.
oversized to
Yeah,
make sense
Yeah,
on
that
that.
is.
so then you kind of really.
Oh, yeah, this
Sort of
is,
more exposed then, right?
yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those situations where we often encourage people to do things simply without documentation, but since we know there wasn't a canopy on this house, it is, I guess, a bit of a historicist opportunity. See, there you go, Lloyd's just designed the whole thing for you.
I mean, yeah, I'm seeing it here now. Yeah, I guess there are shed roofs on porches on colonial buildings, but I hadn't thought about it.
But I think even, Lloyd, you raise a good point, which is even as drawn on the application, it still has this sort of triangular void, you know, for the bracket, even if it's a pitched roof. And is there an opportunity for something to be kind of filling in that area a little bit?
Well,
Or just something a little bit more.
Just leaving it open. I mean, it just, you know, for example, with that canopy, that looks a little too fussy as far as all of the
Yeah, maybe.
little lacy infill.
compared to how simple the house is.
Right.
And the same for this one. I
Mm.
mean, I do think that open is probably better. It's more working out the details of like you just said.
Yeah,
about the
I
sheeting
mean-
And if they're what that trim
Yeah.
kind of,
And this,
and you,
this building's a much bigger volume.
yeah.
Right, but I guess my concern is how do we prevent it from looking like something that's just been tacked onto the front of a building?
Well, yeah, that's, with transite siding, I think,
I mean, it's painted
The
to match the
building
window
still has
window trim.
a beautiful form, independent of its siding.
Mhm.
um. I mean, the window frames are the visual elements.
Yeah.
Which are the closest to the door,
Mhm.
and so, the question becomes. Can.
There's a lot of trim on those windows too.
Yes, it's not, it's, Steve Palucci did the windows last summer just to shore them up. And they're not very well done, to be honest. The stuff falls off.
The windows themselves or both.
There's a kind of like Greek ornamentation. Yeah, and
That
it's
looks
not-
fake. It looks like it was added later. 'cause
It
they
was
didn't
done
do
about
typical-
10, 15 years ago.
Oh.
Okay.
And it's basically stuck on with glue.
Could we convince you to remove it? And
Well,
we'll have something a little
They're
more.
really silly on their scale.
The ones on the elevation, I guess it's the north elevation. Which is sort of darker and it doesn't dry out so much,
Yeah.
that all fell off, so those ones are actually pretty basic, but we didn't want to touch anything, so they've basically been cleaned up and painted.
What is the material, or that, frames the door?
It's just planks of wood. And again, I think once, because that's probably gonna have to be taken off when we take the siding off to get it keyed into the frame. I think you'll find that that's probably got rot behind it, because again, this water, I mean, literally, I have a photograph taken before I bought it in the winter of 2021, where that light fitting that was above it is encased in ice.
Yeah.
And was all dripping, so that water would have gone behind that framing of some kind. I couldn't see evidence of it last summer when I came to that, but it's basically just planks of wood.
Oh,
Very basic.
I guess the question that I would have is, have you thought about how do you attach it to the building? I mean, you're going through transite, which is a rigid sort of a cement board.
Yes, exactly.
And so, I mean, I see a lot of, finicky details on how you're going to attach it to the building. I mean, I think that even something as simple as what you're proposing.
I spoke to Steve about it, Steve's gonna do the work with me. He said you'd have to take off the siding. Because it would have to be basically anchored into the frame of the building, and then they put the siding back around it with proper.
But so are you also gonna re-trim this door at the same time?
If it needs to be, it probably will need to be.
Because I think Al, you raised a good point, which is that if you're sizing the canopy to fit around the current size of the door. And then ultimately, you're gonna remove all this trim around the door and replace it with something else, are you gonna maintain that same width? Or are you gonna do something that's kind of closer in line with the windows, at which point is the canopy gonna seem like it's too wide? Or,
Yeah, because I mean, looking at it from what you drew, you kind of spaced it in the middle of this space. So you've got a canopy that comes up like this,
Yeah,
when in fact, what you're really trying to accomplish is just cover the area of the door.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed because of the historic district, I shouldn't touch things that don't need touching.
oh, no, I mean,
my-
you can, if it needs to be improved upon, then of course we should discuss that.
Mhm.
But if it ultimately becomes something that becomes an emergency that needs to be replaced, you don't want to be in a situation where you have this pre-existing oversized canopy and then
Well, I think-
miniature door below it.
The big unknown for us is exactly where the studs are, because it's an 1860 building, so
Right,
nothing's, modern standard, so I assume that we would have to adjust it to be able to tie into the framing of the building, rather than have it sort of.
Right, and see, here is my concern also is that. You're talking about removing transite, which is an asbestos product.
Right.
Are they going to allow you to put it back?
Well, who's
Or
there?
Is it?
Introducing it into the public record doesn't help.
I mean, the question, it's all nice and good for us to say, but ultimately he's gonna have to give it to the.
Right, but
building
we,
inspector.
but we are aware that there are contemporary composite products that mimic these modules, and we've approved them on other properties.
Because there are, if your concern is the rot over here, you're probably better off removing some of the stuff and just seeing what you have. I mean, it may be a more extensive project than you currently think.
Well, I did the door set in the summer, and that I did have some rot, and I cleaned that all out and basically put it all back. I
Right,
think much better. I couldn't see evidence of that actual framing being rotten. I'm just assuming that once you uncover everything I've done in the house, when you uncover it, you
Right,
see a
yeah.
cascade of horrors. But I mean, Steve did the back windows because they're all rotten, and he replaced quite a lot of the siding, and he said it was a cement fiber, it wasn't asbestos. So I'm kind of relying on that. I think that's the case. And he found the same product to replace the ones that were cracked. So I'm kind of trusting him to know how to actually get it done to the right standard.
well, I know that this house has had this siding ever since I've been here.
Yeah.
So, it's not a modern
Which was
product.
shortly after the house was built.
It's not a modern material. I can almost assure you that it's the asbestos
Right.
transite.
It's all over town.
Yeah, but if it's not, if it's non-friable, it's not, like,
Right, and well, and that's just it. I mean, in
it's not
removing it-
friable. You're not gonna be friable, meaning pulverizing into
Yeah.
dust, like it's.
Right, I mean, most
All day, every day.
Most problem of asbestos is when you have insulation that is deteriorating and, you touch it and just floats out. So,
That is a element of the.
Yes, I think as far as moving the project forward, my sort of big question would be what exactly is going to have to happen to the door eventually, and based on that, I would want to see a relationship between the door and the canopy so that you're not painting yourself into a corner, and also you aren't installing something that you're going to have to very quickly remove and fix whatever you've installed it on top of. So I think for the purpose of, saving you heartache in the long term, it's worth just talking to Steve a little bit more about this specifically and figuring out, what ultimately you want this door to look like, and then taking that one step further to the kind of proportions and finishes of the canopy itself.
Is there a consensus in the group about the shed versus the pitched? Because the more I look at it and how heavy all of the trim on the first floor is versus the second, especially around the door, I'm kind of starting to think that the shed roof would be a little,
Would simplify it.
would simplify it.
Mm.
Like it's you can't really see the outline where it's drawn right now, but that's like, it's like all trim and then it's like, I don't know.
the other thing to consider is that if you go with the shed roof, what you can do is you can, run the leader along the brace back to the house and drop it along the face of the building. And the only thing is that after that, you're gonna have to figure out, where do you dump any water that it collects? I mean, that'll solve your problem as far as dumping the water on people walking past the house.
So sorry, explain again, the water would,
In other words, if, let's say, you take your framing over here, but instead of a pitch, you have a shed roof and it comes down here. You can have a gutter and then the gutter, the leader from the gutter comes down along there. At least you have something to attach it to and it looks like it belongs there. And then you bring the leader down along the face of the building.
But I mean, would a shed roof of this size really
No.
need a
Well,
gutter on it? I don't,
traditionally
But yeah,
it isn't something that I would expect to see on a,
Adding.
but how wide is
4-inch
the,
gutters or a
is
24
the,
inch.
how wide is the landing?
I measured it recently, I think it was 45 inches.
All right, so it's less than 4 feet. And the door is 3 foot. So, realistically, the shed roof would probably be about 4 foot. 4 foot by 2 foot, I mean, how much rain does that catch?
Well, it catches the entire roof when the
Oh,
gutter,
yeah.
that's the problem.
well, I also think, I mean, addressing the bend in your gutter as a separate point of concern, which may end up being less expensive than
I
building a
think-
canopy over your door and.
The entire house. If you put a board on the floor, it will roll to the middle.
To the center.
So when we did the kitchen.
I know what that's like.
There's about a 2-inch slope
Uh-huh.
between one end and the other of the kitchen.
Sure.
So the entire center of the house is lower. So I think that pitch is because the gutter actually follows the roof line.
It doesn't have.
Right, and it's not, yeah.
Weird. Which one is I need to.
And there's four fireplaces. Ventilation fireplaces.
Yeah, but it is a wide house. I mean, it is a
wonder-
expanse.
Yeah.
It is a span. Okay, so for the purpose of giving some feedback.
Yeah.
I do think that we're just going to need to kind of get more information about the how it's all going to be finished, the actual shape of it, and how it relates to the future of the door.
Yeah.
And then I do think that the other element as well that's weighing on me is the proportions of the canopy and to the proportions of the stoop. I think if they can be matched, then that would be good. And if they aren't, I would just want to kind of have an idea of how far off they will be and how that'll kind of throw off the eye if you're coming down the street in one direction and there's a significant difference between them, or if you're looking at the house. I mean, the stoop does step down, so it does, I think you could put something over symmetrically over it that wasn't the exact, full wide width, but those are the concerns that I have, are just making sure that this looks like something that could have been original to the house. And how it would relate to all of the permanent elements of the house.
Yeah, it seems like it should match the stoop or the trim of the door. If
It
that
just
trim
needs
is
to have
staying there,
some kind
that,
of anchor.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this trim just doesn't make sense. I mean,
Yeah, it's
nobody would
huge.
frame it out that way.
But there's this house up here, which is right near me, also has on Cherry Street, like, that's like got a tremendous amount.
Well,
of
that looks like it had a side light.
Yeah, those look like sidelights that may have been filled in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Is this isn't something you have to commit to on the recording, but do you have an intention of ever reciting the house?
I wasn't planning on doing that.
Well, no, that's just another, it's just another question too, because if we, if we knew that that was something that was gonna be happening eventually, then obviously we would
Yeah,
adjust our sort of expectations for this accordingly, knowing that you had a goal to do it. But if that's, it's fine, you don't have to. So I'm just trying to,
My original intention was just to make sure the water doesn't come in the front
just to
door.
unlock the door and live there scot free.
Keep
Yeah,
Keep it, simple.
okay,
And also because, everyone said the siding is in pretty good shape, generally.
okay.
It's actually over the original cedar frame.
Oh, okay.
We drill a hole through to the light fitting in, I've got the block,
Mhm.
the siding and the wood, and it's all pretty original stuff.
Great.
Looks the thing, so.
Well, as long as that's tight. Great.
Okay, so,
So should we see you in April?
okay,
And between now and then, if you have any questions or any clarification, Steve loves us.
Yeah.
He knows this drill, so.
yeah, I'll talk to him. Great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
well, thanks so much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Right?
come on down.
Yeah,
Plans have evolved a little bit.
a little bit. I mean, we still got a little more work. I guess the pipes didn't.
First,
No. I'm Jeff Shanter. I think I met most of you already.
Yeah.
so, yeah. I brought a full copy of the plan. Cool. I don't know if you. More for, so we can look at that picture. On the inside where it shows the windows in that dormer. I do have a little bit of history. We can go over today. It wasn't church. At one point, but this is a picture that shows from the inside when they covered the window up, to do with our layout for our lights, our window lights.
yeah,
So that, I mean,
that's still
dormer-
there.
that's still, yeah,
That's
they covered up a lot of things.
That's cool.
Went over stuff. But the dormers weren't original, they were, I don't know what year they were put on.
Is this?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't when it was a church, didn't the facade face church street and then they changed? No, they didn't? Oh, okay. I thought I heard a rumor about that.
I unfortunately didn't, I have a picture, but I wasn't able to get a decent view of it. The whole front of that place was pushed out like 12 feet
Towards Main Street.
towards Main Street.
Okay.
And that's originally where it was like a big square entryway with this really cool steeple on it. So
Oh, wow.
what I found out about that is, I guess in 1833, the First Methodist Church moved in there. I don't know if they built it or whatever, but they went in there.
Mhm.
And about 50 years later, the steeple was falling off the building, so it was removed. And they moved.
Mhm.
And then the first thing we could find past that was, in the late 1880s, it was a furniture store on one side. They had divided it like on these, if you guys ever go on the Sanborn maps, like the insurance maps.
Yep.
It showed it as maybe a restaurant at one time and a furniture store, then a restoration store, but it still showed the original kind of footprint, and it looked like there was a couple other little outbuildings on the property at that point. But past that, I really couldn't figure out much of anything
Thanks for-
as far as history, but I mean, we tried to look into it a little bit. So I guess what we're really trying to do with this right now is get these dormers addressed first.
Yeah.
We do have to deal with the egress window on the front, but we just haven't kind of finalized what we're doing. We're just gonna submit for that when we get it together.
Oh, the front facing Main
The
Street.
front facing, I just didn't, but this, it's got a lot of issues with, it's wide open to the weather.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's gonna take to get the windows, so,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd like to get this sorted out, so I figured
Yeah.
we take care of this group of windows.
Yeah.
you know, those 4 upper windows kind of on the exterior right now.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, next month I'll have the stuff ready for the front.
The 4 and the rest down here, or?
No, just these 4 windows.
Oh, okay. What's happening down here? These are not being changed?
No. not
Oh,
at this time.
okay, I thought they were.
Well, no. I mean, this was drawn in by Hudson as a grand scheme.
Mhm.
So that's why we're trying to pull this, you know, we've got a lot going on with structural and bringing the
Yeah.
building up to code. We want to do. We're trying to prioritize projects
Yeah,
without
yeah,
saying
sure.
we're gonna do too much and then end up. You know, not being able to complete some of it. We gotta,
Yeah,
there's something everywhere that needs to be touched is the problem.
Well, we review these projects in pieces all the time.
Yeah, and
yeah.
yeah, the only thing is that, what we need submitted to us. You know, to be approved, it can't have this stuff because then it looks like, you know, that's. Well, I think we put it on here as which windows we highlighted, I think the windows.
It's kind of surrounded with a dotted line.
Yeah,
right.
it says right here, yeah. I mean, this window is not in there. I mean, I can correct, if there's something that needs to be clarified, or we could just take all these numbers off here. And letters, you know what I mean, so it doesn't look.
Yeah.
They kind of, you know, it went a little, when they did it, they kind of did a full encompass and it wasn't really, so. What our plan was at the time, I mean. And I want to be clear what we're doing, so
Yeah.
it doesn't look like we're doing also, and you come back and say, well, you just did the 2 dormers, what
Yeah.
about the rest of the building? I
So
don't
this
know.
5th window, which is on the second,
Yeah,
that's not.
That's not it,
Just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
yes, that's correct at the top.
My initial, I like the matching the light pattern on in the left side dormer, which those are larger windows.
Yep.
I think for those 2 awning windows, which are pretty kind of atypical for.
Sort of like four light, right?
Yeah, I
Right.
think,
Yeah, I
I think
agree
the
with you.
4 vertically oriented panes is better.
Yeah.
Rather than 8.
Yeah, so it would
8
just, it
kind
would
of
just be
square
like,
pane
yeah, it would be 4 individual lights. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
for these 2.
So it would sort of look like it was almost the size, the light
Yeah, but it
bulbs are
would
almost
be
the size of
stretched
this
out.
one.
Yeah, they're right.
Yeah,
Just
that makes sense.
4 panes across rather than divided into 8.
Yeah.
And then I almost. Not sure about type G.
I mean, we can look at those sizes on that back page too.
Just because, yeah, type G is already, those are. So, God, they're kind of small windows already that
Mhm.
dividing them into 4/4. Like I wonder, you know how my house has, like the right side are 6/6, but then the left side, which are narrower, are just. And what are they? They're larger panes.
But that's kind of typical on older houses. They
Yeah.
kind of spend a lot more time instead of like today when they produce a window, if you're getting 6/6, no matter what size the
Whatever, they
window
just like
is. they-
squish it or stretch
Right,
it.
They would take and make
Yeah,
it
it's-
look more aesthetically.
So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, to your point, Todd, it's almost like maintaining the
intent.
relative pane size is better than
Trying to match light patterns.
the
on these
number.
things.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because what, you
Like
know,
would
if it's-
G look
if these are
better?
4/4, and then these are just 4.
4.
4
Would
over
G be
none.
better with 2 panes in the upper sash, 2
2
panes in the
over
lower
2.
sash?
I'm wondering if
Over
that's a
Yeah,
way of.
I think it looks more balanced, especially
Yeah.
since he's got the.
Well, they're almost a foot narrower too.
Right.
Yeah.
If
So
you look
doing
right
that
here,
same
it's
light pattern,
2
you
foot
end up-
6 is the width
Yeah.
on the larger ones, and it's 1'8". So it
that's
is
small.
substantially less.
So you basically just took this off. and
Took
it
the
was just-
horizontal bar out.
Yeah, and if it was just 4, kind of slightly oblong.
Took the vertical bar out, the
Or
vertical
take the
one out.
vertical bars. you
Right?
can- Oh, take the vertical bar, yeah. So it's still, so this still kind of lines up is what he's saying, then
Oh,
it's
no,
a
no, I was
single.
saying, sorry, I was saying take the horizontal bar. So that it's. So this remains, this is the check rail where they come together. And it would just be
Oh.
2/2. Like this. You're saying this.
I was
way?
actually saying the opposite.
Oh, that's,
which is more like what the front of my house.
Right.
Oh.
That's
What's the
a
street that's-
much more sort of modern.
Well,
I have pictures of the whole outside of the plan if you want.
It's up to the.
No, I've got some Sanborn maps over here of Cold Spring, and I was just trying to see.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think it's on image 5.
I think they'd be too tall that way.
Too like
Too
elongated.
vertically, like very, I mean, a 19-inch window with all that, whatever it is, aluminum or wood framework is gonna end up with, say, call it 4 inches of framework on either side. You're talking about
Your building is over.
like 11 inches,
Yeah.
12 inches of glass, and split that in two, and you end up with like
I have a link to it.
very skinny panes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'd be more. They would be more square. They would be more square
Hmm.
if that vertical mutton was removed. And the ones, the originals, I mean, they are vertically oriented, but they are not super tall.
Well, you can see, this is the windows that are in that right now.
Right, they're just one of the
And they're
ones.
just, yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Well, it's like everything. There's never a simple solution
Yeah.
now, is there? Because it is, each way is gonna change.
Oh, well, E though, type E, these windows are growing
Yes,
because they need to for egress. Right?
Which
Or-
the little eyebrow?
No, the big, these ones,
Yeah.
if you look at that compared to that, the original windows are much narrower.
Oh, yeah.
Numbers are much different size though, too.
Yes. Yes, but the original photo that we're looking of, that window that was covered up,
Yeah.
that's 4 panes over 4 panes. Those panes are are vertically oriented.
Yeah,
What you guys have drawn in here, those are much more square looking.
yes.
Because the width of each of those windows has grown
Yeah.
quite a
You can
bit.
see how it's coming into
Right.
that triangle.
Al?
No, I was just. Because, we had some. We had some, Sanborn map, but they were.
Right here. No, it's hard to see, but this is the map, the Sanborn map. So there's Church Street.
Right.
And then if you roll this up, see it says furniture. And it looks like either that says restaurant or restaurant. Right, see that, I believe. This is that little brick building and there was 2 or 3 other little outbuildings.
Hmm.
Cause right here, I think was kind of the property line and it went back. I mean, who knows when it went like back then, but. I don't know what this is, that or this. I don't know if you guys. want to
And
see
it
that.
doesn't look like there's anything.
But that's closer to, this must have been after they extended the front of it, because it's in line with the building next door.
Good point, yeah.
So they added 12 feet to the front of it?
Yeah, so that must have been done when they took I bet you they did that when they took the steeple off.
Yeah.
That's a good observation.
But I wonder whether it was somewhere like if it originally ended somewhere like around here.
Mhm.
It did, I mean, I can see from, this place was like added on to, so it's like every time I look at it, it's like a new mystery of what was added, when and why and.
Well, from what I understand, there were a lot of changes that occurred because there was a fire at one point. They straightened out the street.
Right, that's the other end.
And so there were a lot of things which have.
We
changed.
tried to find with the Sanborn maps, that's what we were trying to find, if there was a fire, when the fire was.
What year was this map that you found?
I think this is 1890 something.
Oh, okay, yeah, so then that would have been after they. That would have been after the steeple came off and they extended the front.
Yeah, because it's like you said, right here, where this dormer is, I believe is the original, because you can see different brick inside. So it's about right here was the original.
And that also might relate to when they changed the. When they changed the dimensions of Main Street. Would it have been originally would, if the building ended here originally, would it have been relating to Main Street differently before?
54 feet, it says there. Was the width of Main Street at the time of this, so yeah. I'm assuming that that's what that is, right?
Okay. So,
They had a well in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
That was handy back there. I don't know, it's neat looking up the old
Yeah.
stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
this building kind of has changed its use so many times.
It's
and-
tricky to figure out because it's so bizarre. And we're making we're making decisions about one tiny little element.
the Sanborn maps too, you would have the maps, and then if there were any changes, they would just erase things and paste over them. So it's like,
We're just trying to, as we go through this, we want to improve the outside when we touch areas, I think, you know what I mean, and make.
There's
make it
like
look
no
closer.
symmetry to
Yeah.
any of it,
Right.
which is odd because it's kind of a big box, but like everything is punched through in weird locations. The two dormers don't even match, and then these two awning windows are not even centered between the dormers, so it's like,
The dormers are
like-
different.
you know, trying to unify.
but probably so much of that is based on the fact that the framing is not
Right,
consistent
right,
around the whole
Right,
building.
you're right, yeah.
Well, the window placements and stuff, that's all to do with, because the original church was, you know, post and beam, so it's like 4 big
Yeah.
ribs running all the way through, right? So they couldn't just put stuff anywhere.
And then that weird outdoor staircase to that weird shed roof, sunroom, that's like.
What is this stuff that we're seeing here?
Isn't that what,
That's original framing upstairs.
Okay, but I mean, how does it relate to what you're proposing?
Well, this is right here. This is the rafter that comes up the side of the dormer. And you can see light coming through because it's rotted out.
All right, but if that's the case, then this window is actually here.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah. They're not
Yeah,
enlarging it.
this
towards
window
the middle.
is right here.
Okay, and so basically what we're talking about is restoring this to what it was originally.
Yeah,
No,
but
the
the
width is
windows are.
growing, the width
bigger.
is growing, so the window is gonna stay here, but go out to there more.
Okay. Is there another window currently there?
Yes, but that's in the dead space. We're gonna put it there, but there's nothing on this side.
Yeah.
Or this side, this side. It is. In a place with 50 million different
Yeah.
floor elevations, you know.
Right.
You know, when we demoed downstairs, even where the bathroom is, it's like 1.5 inches different than the little bathroom in the retail space. So now we gotta, you know,
Level it out.
Um,
so this window will be in kind of the attic space right now, you know, but I think we wanna make this symmetrical, I mean. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, redo all the siding and whatever is rotten on here.
And so you're proposing, just again, so that we are acknowledging on these drawings what we are approving right now. It is the windows, the associated trims, and the siding,
Around these dormers, yeah.
but not the actual clapboard siding of this level.
No, not this level at this time.
So we're really just approving
Window.
windows, trim, and the siding in the.
On the dormers.
dormers themselves.
How high is this window off the floor?
It's gonna be over 24 inches. I don't know exactly what the height is right now, but they're very high. They're like this high right now. We're gonna make them a little bigger.
The awning windows are?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I can get you an exact dimension. I'm sorry.
We don't,
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it becomes a code issue whether or not.
Well, if they're under 12, I think they gotta be tempered. I don't think there's anything saying that they can't, but visually looking at it, and I didn't measure it completely, we did look at it with Hudson Design, and it was a non-issue, but we didn't specify and I'm happy to get that information to you. I mean, I can have that. for you tomorrow.
We don't enforce the code. and just sort of, you know.
No, but I'm
the
happy
issues
to,
that may-
any question you
may
have,
come
I'm more than happy to answer. You know, an accurate, not a guesstimate. Right, Jeff?
One other question that I have too, since these are wall dormers
Yep.
and there's no roof below them, is it possible that you could make the sills of all of them in line? Because it looks like
Let's
the
look at,
dormer all the way to the
Is a little higher.
right is a little high. That might just be the rendering, you know, but it looks like there's nothing below it but siding.
so you're saying if I took this, whatever this line
Just to
is,
kind of unify that line across.
I mean, I don't think that's a problem.
Because it also looks like these are drawn with a little bit more of a trimmed out sill to them and this is not.
Yeah, so I think we should put like, you know, like an historical sill, like an inch and a half sill maybe across that. So it looks like one unit on this side and the same thing on the other side.
Yeah, and just to kind of keep, because you're not, you know, there isn't really any other point to anchor them. Because they're different heights, they're different
Right.
widths, the rhythm is a little bit inconsistent. So at
So we
least
could
if
bring
they're all,
one part of this building to kind of all of a sudden.
yeah, well, at least if they're all kind of in line, then it gives you a kind of point of focus.
Yeah,
And
so-
also too, you're not gonna end up with,
We may
Birds that
then
are-
make those windows the same. Well, maybe not the same height, but
They're gonna start to get really, really skinny and tall if you, I think if you,
right, because they're a foot,
Raised.
they're showing them a foot smaller now.
then they,
They exist, they do align with each other. I'm putting lines across.
A foot,
sorry,
They
what
are
was that?
the bottoms do align.
these,
yes.
the new windows are gonna be a foot smaller than what.
Small, no, a foot smaller than the windows and on the larger
the larger,
door.
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
give you, you know, if we
A foot shorter, yeah.
a foot shorter to start, so I mean, I'd have to figure out if we match that sill height, we might wanna make those a little bit taller, is what I'm saying, to bring it
If
down.
that's the case, then I do think that removing that vertical mutton is the right way to go. Because then you really do end up with
Big,
square to slightly vertical panes.
Mhm.
Rather than really skinny or really, you
Yeah.
know,
I agree.
yeah.
I didn't see it that way at first, but now that you mention it, it's-
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay, so are we talking about aligning the bottoms
We're
of?
talking about aligning the bottom, which means these are gonna grow vertically a little bit, and then removing the vertical mutton from here. So you have 2/2, which would result in square to slightly vertical means. At least that's what my opinion is.
And for the two,
And for these two, basically removing the horizontal, so the panes are.
It would just be 4 lights in each one.
yeah, so they would look more like kind of like their story.
Yeah,
Okay, on these, are we talking about removing the vertical or the horizontal?
well, I thought vertical, Sean thought horizontal.
But I think it would depend on the actual daylight that you're gonna be seeing, because I agree with Todd that if they get really kind of slim, if they end up looking like archer's windows, then
Yeah.
it might exaggerate how narrow they are.
And if we're gonna grow the height to match the
Right,
fill,
right.
then that means they are gonna get a little bit taller.
Right.
I just don't know about the single, you know, a sash with a single horizontal muntin as how that stands in history.
I feel like
That
My-
sounds weird to me. I personally, those two little, we're talking about the two horizontals, right, in the middle?
Yeah,
my bay window has that. I
No, we're talking about the smaller dormer on the far right. If we were going to reduce it to 2/2 windows, so should the sashes have a horizontal muntin or a vertical muntin?
I guess I have a totally different take on it. I'm looking at that picture of the interior of the existing window and there's
That's
your,
from- That's from the larger dormer.
sure, which is the, older example, I guess, but. Well, on the larger dormer, I'm bothered that it's the oldest thing on the building and it's being completely changed. Like, do those windows really have to be larger? Can you just put, you have existing windows there
Well,
They need
to
to be made
mimic
into egress
or
windows.
repair? Huh?
I've got to double check that, because I could maybe make the awning window with egress hardware.
Hmm.
Then I know where it's like we're going back and forth, but. Yeah, awning window can be made in egress, because they put egress hardware, then it swings all the way over. Just like the same if you do a casement. I mean. Would it be better to do that?
I personally think unless the dormers are the same, which they're not, and unless all four windows are the same, which they aren't going to be, I don't personally see an issue.
Well, I guess if we're looking to make these egress window. The
I'm not,
question is what's the layout as far as where are egress windows required?
just in the bedroom.
I know, but are there 2 units up here?
Yeah, there's 2 units, so that's what I said, this is never gonna meet egress, so we're working on our front facade,
Mhm.
and I'll bring that to another meeting.
Right.
I'm not sure this meets egress, I think this is what we were gonna make egress. The awning window to begin with.
Oh.
This does not meet egress, so if you guys. Want these windows closer to original,
But if it was closer to the original, then what would be in the middle there? I mean, as it is right now, we've got.
Siding.
just the siding that's
Yeah.
there.
I don't think so.
I think, Lloyd, I understand what you're saying about the, restoring the existing fabric or the sort of signs of existing fabric, but to me, it seems like if we were just to have replacement windows for those 2 in their current openings, it seems like it's infill. I mean, unless what you're getting at is that potentially there was a third window
there
in
was a-
between them.
I bet there was a third window all through here.
Yeah, if it was a
Well,
church.
there's a
event.
dividing beam in between there is the problem with that. I think when this was built. You can't see it here, but right here is where one of the main beams of the.
Yeah, so there was it was always.
It was always, I mean, this is. It's like
Yeah.
everything else
Yeah.
there, it kind of doesn't make sense,
That's right.
unfortunately.
It was just a quirk.
Yeah, I think in the absence, I mean, this very well could have been built exactly as we see it, and everyone would have said, why the hell did they build the
Yeah,
window that way? For, 100 years.
Yeah.
People saying, wow, isn't that weird? I think without there being a kind of bigger plan for how to deal with that in the long term, I'm comfortable seeing it improved upon if it's gonna make it kind of make more sense with the, I don't think there's value in necessarily keeping a design that looks inappropriate, even if it is historic.
Yeah,
I disagree completely. It's the last thing on the building that looks original, and it's the last hint that it was a church. That looks totally church.
But from what
church-like to me.
what the applicant is suggesting is that these dormers weren't original to the church structure, they were added later. Which would also make sense too, because once it became divided into a commercial space, they would need to have some windows on the 3rd story. The third story has a 20-foot ceiling height, according to this drawing, doesn't it?
I don't know. This one looks original and this one looks added, but
I'm saying, oh, this is 20 off of the ground,
Yeah.
so it's 10 and 10.
Yeah, and on the
And then to the
stand board
top
thing, it
is
said
what?
it's 2.5 stories they were calling, it, so
Right.
they added that. This story at that time. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't bring a picture of the church, but they definitely weren't on there when it was church.
Yeah.
Cause I thought the same thing, that this design was part of this.
See, Lloyd,
Yeah.
I disagree with what Sean is saying about having it look nice as opposed to, even if it's not historic. But I think in this case, this has been modified so much that they're really, it's kind of hard to pin down exactly what is historic. I mean, historic
Yeah,
of what,
I hear you, yeah.
What's
I just think that
sorry.
if you put in 2 smaller windows and then you match these 2 to that, they're very close. Put in a bigger window in the middle for the view, obviously, and then these, I'm not sure about this idea of the horizontals. I just want these to disappear and just be, but they're obviously modern insertions, so I want them to.
Yeah, I
to
mean, I
be-
don't see any way to make those not look odd, because they're,
But I think if you make them 4 lights,
yeah,
it brings it kind of like a barn sash, and you would see,
Yeah.
I mean, it would be.
I wish they were centered, but.
well, let me ask this, I'll throw it on the table. Instead of these 2 smaller lights, is it possible to have another dormer added?
That's-
Yes.
That's a nice
I
idea.
mean, I was thinking it, but I wasn't gonna go there.
Well, the problem with doing that is this one is where the bathroom is. I mean, you would not, could, if you centered it, it would be right in the middle of.
But mimicking the smaller dormer with this window starts to make more sense, I think, visually.
Which window?
You're saying the bathroom is here?
Yes.
Okay, so mimicking this smaller dormer here is large dormer and 2 smaller dormers that are next to each other. Off center, that part starts not to matter as much, because in a grouping of 3, it doesn't need, they relate to each other, but they don't have to be the same.
And then you would just leave this awning window as your.
I mean, I would
egress.
personally infill it, but I don't know what the space is.
But I need to have this is gonna be my egress.
Oh,
'cause
that's the egress.
That's where the problem is with the
That's-
level.
Well, is that still better? Is that even a chance?
I don't know if it's gonna make, I mean, I wanna do the right thing for this building too. This is not, about.
I think Lloyd is designing in real time.
Yeah, it shouldn't be done.
Lloyd, is that if that right side awning window closer to the small dormer becomes another small dormer, does the leftover awning window look less odd?
He's got it in there.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, if that awning window then is centered or almost centered between the 2 dormers, then that feels a million times better to me.
Yeah.
Well, it also kind of makes the 2nd story
Yes.
winter garden make a little bit more sense too,
Yeah.
because you could
Yes.
hit that line.
Yeah, that's.
And
so
also,
much
those
more
windows were
balanced.
eventually changed in that 2nd floor kind of last in room. If those windows were changed to something a little more historically accurate, I think that looks 1,000 times
Yeah.
better.
That looks so much nicer. It just.
Does look nicer.
It's not.
Oh, went there.
Well,
I think if we're gonna, if this is how you want me to go, I'm obviously gonna have to present this and we're gonna have to draw.
Yeah, because the thing is that, we're sort of, nibbling around the edges and trying to make sense out of it, and none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with what you're doing, has to do with how the building evolved over the years, and
It's just as frustrating for me because, we do care about the history of the
Yeah.
building and we just did the castle. I mean,
Yeah.
that was no, we want to do historic stuff, but this building, I can't seem to find anything
I
to
feel like,
grab onto and feel like, let's run with
I
it.
feel like this sets you up for the future of being able to transform the building in a meaningful way, where two awkward, different sized dormers with two awning windows not symmetrically spaced up on that third floor. Like that really ties you into like, okay, this building is bizarre and we're just gonna do the best we can.
We're just adding.
Right,
more.
like this kind of starts to make it feel like, okay, eventually there's a plan and a point to all, yeah, there's a cohesion to it.
And you look, like you're
Yes,
keeping this building
Look,
standing
here
on
you
Main
go.
Street. That's already,
How
you
much
know,
better that looks.
wow,
I love this program.
it's looking better.
This is progress.
Oh, he's really.
I'm really going,
Yeah, don't do that.
just trying to visualize it.
I'll make it yellow.
Really nice.
I have a related to this, but unrelated to adding this additional dormer. What is going on the lot line side in that dormer?
Well, nothing right now, I mean.
No, I'm just saying to give us an idea of what the other one.
It's the exact same
Exact same
mirrored
thing.
image of
With a
it.
big empty, with a big wide empty filled-in space in the middle.
I couldn't get a good picture of it, because the buildings are too close.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be, they must have been added to add light onto the third floor. Cause if it was a church, it would have opened
Well,
up.
they
then,
converted
right?
it into apartments up there, right? Or no? No, because now I'm looking at this and I'm
I mean,
like,
they were built a long time ago by the look of the lumber,
okay.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, like staff rooms and.
yeah, but I mean, if you were gonna build a church-shaped church with a steeple, then wouldn't the interior of the sanctuary go all the way up?
They weren't on it when it was a church.
They weren't on there when I was a church.
And then
so, right.
if you're gonna take a big
Four
empty
units on
vessel
this.
volume and
Right.
turn it into a functional commercial space,
Alright.
you add a floor and you add a floor and then you need to get a light.
Arrangement
Yeah,
is
yeah.
symmetrical. How is it split up? In other words, is there one large?
So the apartments are split up. We don't have a floor plan here. They're front to back, so it's kind of like when they divided the building when one half of it was this, so you've got two apartments side by side, left and right, when you're looking at the front, and then there's a small apartment like in the
Along
back.
back.
Yeah,
You're like, railroad?
that one is, so.
Yeah, okay, I get it, because then adding the dormer on this side will then, make so much sense on the other side also. And the apartment on the Mac is the one that has this, and the issue becomes, if these can be made into egress windows, then this one can go away entirely.
Right. If I could make this into an egress window. Then we could get rid of this altogether.
Hmm.
Well, then you're into basically the fake double hung casement.
Which visually from the
which I-
street's gonna look, it looks reasonable,
Yeah,
but then,
I still think adding that dormer just sort of makes it all looks like
I mean, we're looking at it right now, but in this picture, it looks like it's bigger than the other two.
oh, wait,
I mean, traditionally, you'd have the largest dormer in the middle. And then smaller dormers on the
well,
side.
yeah, but,
or larger and then small.
Right.
Which.
shrinking, yeah, there you go, he's shrinking.
Yeah, no, I'm just, yeah,
But you're saying that you're saying that the apartment goes, there's an apartment here and here that are divided, and then there's an apartment that goes the entire width of the back?
yes.
So the the egress for the back apartment is what you're trying to figure out. So could you
No, for this is the front of the building.
Yeah.
The stairs coming up from this side, come up here, and there's a door here, there's a window back here for this apartment. And then this apartment is here, it's got a staircase, and then the second floor, these are two floors, 2 bedrooms upstairs.
Oh, okay.
And then a kitchen and living room.
So where's the big,
Huh.
so the big old existing dormer is,
In,
half of it is in that apartment on the second
yeah,
floor.
and the other half is basically like right
Attic
here in
space.
the attic.
in the
Cause
attic.
the rear apartment is a
Mm.
simplex, one floor.
Yeah,
I see, okay.
and that's got a different ceiling height and a different floor.
And is in a different zip code.
Yeah,
All right,
Ooh,
shit.
wow.
Well, I think we've accomplished quite a great deal.
I don't know if this, I don't know if I feel that way,
Probably not.
We'll get it there, we will.
So
15.
in order to move this forward,
Yeah.
do we want to? Are we? How would you like to proceed?
The way I'd like to proceed is that we have some recommendations
Okay,
and which we would like for you guys to consider.
okay.
And so if you can go back and mull over this stuff
No,
And-
yeah,
and come back in April and we'll
and then I'll have the front together
all
too.
right.
Oh, okay, that would be great.
Good, that's official.
So the longer we just push you down the road, the bigger the project becomes.
Yeah.
Careful.
Or we just run away. From,
Yeah, again, I think seeing as much, you don't have to do all the work at once, and even if there's question marks, I think seeing as much of the
I think somebody would
vision.
be quite a group of concern if I showed too much, you thought we were doing.
Well,
I don't think there's such a thing as too much, because a lot of stuff has to be done on this building.
But I mean, right, but we're gonna start, we wanted to kind of be more specific.
Well,
on-
that's what I feel like is most important about kind of what Lloyd just showed us up there, is that it starts to make more sense, and you can kind of see a progression and see a potential to make this building look incredible again, rather than tying yourselves to
Right, what's
this,
there.
what's there just because it's there.
Lloyd, is there a way you could email me that one
Yeah.
image that, the line drawing? Just so I could have something to show them.
Yeah.
Be sure to include an invoice, Lloyd.
I'm not a professional, so I can do that, yeah. Sure.
They have my email, right? Yeah, so if you could
Actually,
email
now
me that, so I could at least
Sean has it if I don't
show
find it.
that, in part of the discussion without getting into redesigning everything. I do have to look at the placement of those beams and where we could actually put it. And I can do, I'll do that work.
Yeah.
And talk to them, and then we'll come back next month
And that's the empty apartment, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it's empty right now, so I mean, technically we could do.
So I guess your egress consideration is the other kind of.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'm gonna see if I can make this egress. Then we could get rid of the awning.
Mhm.
Well, because the other one would be gone. Because if we did the dormer, then
Right.
we'd be getting rid of
Even
that
better.
weird awning window.
Yeah.
So at least that one section then would
Yeah.
start looking like something.
Mhm.
All right. I'm gonna check.
Nice to have two big windows and a dormer in your bathroom. I think that'd be
Yeah,
lovely.
Can you get rid of that, the casement, the other casement window?
The awning.
Awning.
Awning, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you can get the kind of the faux double hung.
Yeah, and
in a
actually,
casement form.
these are gonna be
You still need
so,
20 inches of clear access, so depending on how.
Well, 22
width
high, right?
20 width.
20
On
width,
your if on a casement,
right?
and like 5, I think it's 5.7 square feet.
Yeah, there's gotta be so much clear, I mean, what you're gonna
And you
make
got
with the
the
casement.
level off the floor, but even with the awnings staying there, I think it makes more sense.
yeah,
Yes, it looks like it was added, but at least it's one thing that was added more purposefully, I think.
Yeah.
The two just is like, you're just like, who did this and why didn't they move it,
Right,
2 feet to the right?
so I think because this is gonna be so far off the ground, we could, the idea of a fake double, a kind of
Yeah,
mock double hung that's actually a casement is certainly not gonna bother me. However, the one thing we are gonna have to keep in mind is how the screens sit on them. Because on a double hung window, your screen's on the outside. On a traditional casement window, your screen's on the inside. And if we are gonna have a combination of double hung and casements that we want to look uniform, it'll have to be either an in-swing casement,
Well, that would be a French
like a
case, but
yeah,
I don't think that'll ever meet a US.
the awning is also an outswing though, so.
but when we looked at the Kathleen's house, with Madeline,
Yeah,
that whole discussion was about getting a in-swing casement window for egress that matched the double hungs around it.
My only concern is with the in-swing, it's taking up more room. I'm saying we may be real close, like we're limited on space, but let me.
per their schedule.
Works. Sorry, just so the way that these particular windows worked were, and it'll be in our minutes, and I honestly can't even tell you the name of it because I've forgotten. But it is a in-swing window. When you need to use it as a casement, you can open it in.
Turn
All
to,
of the time,
Yeah,
it has a tilt.
I was at that meeting.
preventing- Oh, yeah. So the reason why we even got down that path was to make sure that all of the screens matched
and I
the,
forget the company.
where the
too,
screens
but I've
were.
Dealt with them before.
tilt turn,
who was it?
tilt turn, I think. I don't know who it
Oh,
was.
No, it's still turnstile. I know that the original windows were supposed to be LePage, but
Right.
No.
this replacement one was not LePage because they're Canadian, and that was the whole problem. Not to blame the Canadians.
But the company that makes those, I think also does these, I did this project where they needed a window that pivoted like an oval window in the
Yeah,
middle.
right.
So it's the same company, I just can't think of it right now.
Right.
So you have 29.25 inches in width per the architects
Yeah,
for this, so
we should be.
I think you should be able to see your way to 20
Making
inches
that work.
clear.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the height will be,
And the height will be-
all right, so. Okay,
I actually think this is
I'll bring a picture.
exciting to look at.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for
bring that
bringing that
check.
up, Al.
I'm
It
sure I
wasn't-
have that, I'm sure I don't have everything today, but.
And you can always email us in between now and then, and we can share. We can't
Okay.
make any decisions or anything over email, but I can certainly send information to the rest of the board for consideration. if we have anything else.
No, that'd be great, I'm happy to. I think this is really. Right, because that was folded,
You can pick everything if you like, because we don't need to plan.
Okay. Oh, well, I'll see you guys next month.
Hey, you see what happens next?
They would just take all the dormers off.
Oh,
No, I do agree, it looks better.
yeah.
You know, something's gotta happen over there,
They're helpful.
Yeah, it starts to make more sense.
That's interesting how that changes that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we should do like the trim that's over the larger one, I think we should match on Hudson's drawing, it had like a vent over there. I think we should proportionally make that triangle,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of quirky shape they had up
Yeah.
there. Cause I did actually see that on a window on another building that's that shape
Oh, cool.
in town, so.
Yeah, there are dormers which previously had, sort of triangular like fan lights over them, which have been filled in. But again, filled in so long ago that they kind of become part of the
Right,
kind of architectural wood trim and less of a window detail. The house on the corner of Pine and Walden is the one I'm thinking of. And then Roberta and the maroon house right near my house, but they actually still have their.
Oh, The big
Um,
one.
uh,
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you, guys. No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you, Lloyd, excuse me.
That's okay.
I forgot you were there at the beginning and my back was to you, so I'm sorry if I
Don't worry
just
about
kind
it.
of forget about the Zoom thing once in a while. It wasn't intentional.
No, I wasn't offended. Don't worry.
All right, guys. Good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Um,
Good night.
Seeing no public, we
Mhm.
will have no public comment. The CLG forms, I got Al's and Todd's.
Oh, I can send you,
CLG form, Lloyd.
yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. Do we have anything to discuss about the design standards?
Yeah, I think we can discuss a little bit. Let me share again. Here, I gotta write down this CLG thing. Okay, otherwise it just goes in one ear and out the next. So let me share again. So,
John, I think that the guy, 5 Market Street,
Mhm.
he'd probably be much better off if he just had a roofer come in and reconfigure his unit.
Cheaper to do
I
the.
think that would be, yeah. Less of a
To
hassle.
just redo the gutters and pitch
Yeah.
them properly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it crossed my mind.
yeah, and then do something like this or some very simple. Just something to shed a little bit of water over.
That was the thing, Lloyd. I mean, I was looking through all of our pictures and it was, there's
Oh,
so many little houses with like, yeah, I mean, what's the depth of that, do you imagine? Like a foot, if that,
Of what?
of the little eyebrow
Not
over
even.
that door. I mean, it's
Is it
like,
even?
I don't even think it is.
No, I think
It's
like,
basically just the,
yeah.
it's
just
the thickness of the brick plus
Yeah.
the thickness of the terracotta, you know, but.
Highly pronounced trim.
And so, I mean, all the houses on Stone Street, they're just these like totally flat lintels,
Mm, yeah,
brick English style over a flat door.
Mm-hmm.
It just pushes the water out a few inches and. Yeah. That's it.
And if it's had a problem like that, he's got all sorts of rot underneath that he's gonna have to deal with. in
And then he's
trying-
gonna be hanging a big wooden canopy off of it, like, I think it's gonna lead to more problems than it's gonna solve. And then he's gonna have to flash it into that. He's gonna. Mhm. Anyway,
So we've gone through here, I got your, notes about Putnam History Museum, adding acknowledgements. I got your, what was the other one that you did, Sean? The new text for significance and integrity. I put in the photo numbers for Kirsten so she can find them and replace the photos we want to replace. And I have, there's probably still some editing to do, but then trying to get to the resource guides. There's some editing to do of things like that, the pink text that still persists in this document. I think
Kirsten
there's a-
has seen it, you said?
No, she hasn't seen it. I have not sent this to her yet. Because I had
All
to
right,
get,
Lloyd, I mean, according to the discussions that we had with the treasurer or things, we need to essentially have Kirsten finish up the contract, what, the end of May?
Okay.
Before the end of May.
I just
So,
don't want to.
we really
I don't
need
want
to-
to.
Yeah, we
don't-
really need to get going with this.
Yeah, I don't want to send her bits, dribs and drabs of it, though. There are parts of this resource guide. Three
Well,
of
I mean, even if it's not
Yeah.
finalized, send it to her so that at least you can start working on some of it.
Okay. Does anybody have, I mean, when we left,
Because I thought these were all the things that we had talked about, you know, in January.
These are all things.
January we left in this resource grad 6, I think it was a C was gonna look at it. There was a portion that AZ was gonna look at.
Yeah, so
I can
Andrea is
send it
going
without,
to,
I can send it without that stuff, fine, if that's what you guys want.
yeah, I think we should give her the opportunity to start rolling on this, just so that we, you know, what we don't want to be in the position for Lloyd is that we give her everything and then tell her she has to finish it in a week. You know, because we don't want her to be kind of caught off guard on it. And the later resource guides, you know, Andrea was gonna kind of do a proofread of the
Make sure the light-
additional
Yeah.
resources. Al was gonna look into the paint.
And,
These are things that don't even necessarily need to be complete.
I completely agree. I was focusing, hold on, I was focusing before, I was focusing before on up to page number, whatever, page number 33, and then we met and everybody was like, wait, we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna look at this, I'm gonna look at that. And then we changed course and we were like, we were gonna finish the whole thing, it seemed, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can finish, you know,
Yeah.
as much as can be finished, should be finished. But to Al's point, we now have I mean, beyond our own deadline of wanting it to be done, we now have a financial deadline of it needing to be done, or her needing to be paid by the end of May. And if that means that we don't have a resource guide about paint,
Yeah, sure, we
So
weren't
then
gonna have any of the resource guides at the beginning of, or at the, you know, until the last meeting, so. Sure, maybe we'll have 2 or 3, okay.
so, and then the other thing, Lloyd, that I did email you about was, I had notes in the glossary. I had uploaded new content for the glossary, just for the
Yeah,
items that
fine.
needed to be changed. Do you think it would be better if I just rewrite the whole glossary and then she can just drop it in? Is that gonna be more efficient?
Let me
I
look
don't
at
mind doing it, but I just don't want her to be confused that if there wasn't something in the notes, that means it's being removed. I'll just resend you the email and you can take a look at it and let me know what you think would be
No,
better.
I have the email, I'm
Oh, yeah.
opening up the edits here, I have your edits too.
Yeah, so the document that I sent, I basically went through and anything that needed to be edited, I put it in that document. But things that were fine, other than formatting, I didn't include, so it's just whether I should just have everything formatted properly. You can let me know.
I thought you had edited everything and then you added the new things and indicated they were new.
I don't think I did. I think that there were some that I left out. I will double check as well. Because if it's only a matter of me adding like, you know, 5 or 10 more, then I'll just put them all together so it's easier.
That's probably
One
easier.
last question, I mean, after we send these revisions to Kirsten and no more edits. This is it, no más.
I'm never gonna look at this thing again after we're done.
Well, but that's just it, because one of the things that we do have to do after she makes the changes, somebody needs to just proofread to make sure that it was
Yeah.
upgraded accordingly.
Yes.
So, you know, Lloyd, are you gonna be able to do that, or should that be somebody else?
Somebody else, please. I,
Right, so
Yes.
who wants to volunteer? For the honor and privilege,
I do not feel. I do not feel in tune enough with this document over the past several years to be the one doing the final.
It's gonna depend on when we get it. That's all I can say.
okay,
Yeah.
and that edit should be just comparing markup. Final, markup and final, no editing content.
How many hours a
Just
month we have, Karen?
We're looking at it. That's the final thing. Okay. Or maybe like.
We can,
we get
yes,
together
we can
and
probably
just
figure it out.
Knock it out. A weekend.
Okay, and so, why don't you get to Kirsten, everything except for the resource guides, and we will make the final comments on the resource guides, and again, close the door,
Hammer it,
That's
Scott,
right.
nail it,
Nail it,
Scott,
Scott.
caulk the perimeter.
Yeah.
she's pretty quick, so we'll probably see some changes back in the next week.
Okay,
All right,
make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, we just have to
the
do the
meeting.
minute. Can you,
Yeah.
Lloyd, do you mind just sharing the minutes on your screen? I've already made a couple of edits. It was just from our last meeting, which was brief.
Wait, before we leave the standards, you all know what you're looking at in those resource guides, right? There were some discussions last time. Al
Yeah.
was looking at 5, Andrea was looking at some, okay.
Yep.
Minutes.
Um, my. Does it have my suggestions?
This is the one from the drive.
Oh, yeah, it's just, it looks like it's accepted it. It was just a type thing about the facade being the new addition on the left facade. Oh, there you go. I was just
Oh.
loading. That was mine, and then also that there was, I don't remember if this actually happened during the meeting or if it was something that we talked about over email afterwards, but just so that it's clear, it was, the modification was that the Muntin patterns were going to be updated as discussed in the previous paragraph. Also, the rear door was, they said it was going to be a French door and it was labeled as a French door, but it was drawn as a sliding door.
Yeah,
I
Right,
think
and-
that was
and-
something we said
We
over
did.
email.
well, yeah, and I made that markup on the.
And you marked it up, okay. So we'll just include it there in the minutes so that it's written verbally.
I agree.
Because the
So
drawings that we
everyone
actually looked at
clear?
during the meeting, it was
Yeah.
sliding, not hinge.
Yep.
Okay, those are my only notes.
So this is
Oh,
correct.
and then actually I said something else about the fence too, just that it is not that there are no composite fence materials that are acceptable. It is that we have yet to approve any. The onus is on the fence manufacturers, not on us.
All right, do I have a motion? Well, what minutes are we looking at now?
February 7th, 2022.
2-7.
Okay, do I have a motion concerning the minutes as presented? for
I will-
February 7th?
I will make a motion to accept them as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Lloyd's abstaining because he was not there.
It wasn't there, yeah.
And, how about the next set?
the next,
That's it.
wasn't it?
Broke the speed.
Just one,
It was the ones, we only met one time. last month.
I thought you said the next motion, I was gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Yawn and adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
And I have the second.
Yeah, I'll second. I'm tired.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I am ready for bed.
Oh my God.
9:31.
Late in the day.
Okay.